There is a viral theory going around now called the bird theory that promises with a simple at-home test, you can instantly figure out if your partner loves you, how much they care about you, and how healthy your relationship is. The problem with most theories that originate on TikTok is that this might not actually be healthy for your relationship. First, let's take a look at somebody actually administering this test to their partner, and then we're going to break this down and talk about it.
Gosh, that took forever.
It did. That looks so good.
I know. I want a sip of that.
You know, when you were inside, I saw a really pretty bird.
A bird?
Yes. It was like so pretty. It literally flew right in front of the car.
Like just now?
Yeah, like right before you came outside.
Oh. What kind of bird?
I don't know. It was blue.
All right. So here's what's going on here. The idea of the bird theory or bird theory test, whatever you want to call it, is that you are going to tell your partner a really simple story that is basically boring, right? Unless you guys are avid bird watchers, telling your partner, hey, I saw a bird today, is probably not going to be the most exciting thing they've heard that day or that week or in any period of time. And the idea is that if they respond positively, if they are at least showing interest, asking questions, the idea is that your relationship is probably healthy. Whereas if they are dismissive, not interested, they tell you it's boring, something like that, the idea of this theory is that your relationship is terrible. Now, if you quickly glance at that on the surface, it sounds like, oh, okay, that probably makes a lot of sense. But before you all run out and do this test with your partner, please stick around because I really want to talk about some of the issues and the problems with this that I think could put you in a bad spot just by doing the test, not even just with how you interpret the results. And then I also want to share a better option if you are trying to figure out where your relationship's at. And it's something that we are calling the chirp test, kind of staying in line with the whole bird theory thing. So make sure you stay tuned for that because I think you're going to love it. So let's start by talking about the problems with the bird theory. The first one is outside circumstances. So if you watch a lot of these videos, typically what you see is somebody waiting at home, their partner gets home from work, and then they kind of spring this test on them. Well, the problem is, number one, what if they're tired, right? What if you've just had this terribly long day at work? What if your boss just yelled at you? What if something bad happened? And now your partner tells you this story that maybe doesn't seem like it's that interesting, and you kind of just don't have the emotional bandwidth or the energy to deal with that because of what's going on in your day. Does that automatically mean you have a bad relationship? I don't think so. I think it just means you had a bad day. You had something else going on that you probably need them to be there for you instead of testing you to see where the relationship is at. Another thing too is that like after a long day, I'll give you an example. Like when I get done with a long day, sometimes I don't have a lot of energy or emotional bandwidth left. And when you have wife, you have kids, you have expectations, you have responsibilities, you have things to do. In your mind, you start kind of going, all right, I've got about maybe a 20% left in my gas tank. Where am I going to put my energy? And I think that's just, you prioritizing to give the most you can to your entire family. And if you then choose, okay, I can put some in, do I put the energy towards, playing with my child, or do I put that energy with listening to a story about a bird and really digging into it? And if you choose this one, again, I don't think that makes you a bad partner. And so that's one of kind of the first flaws with this test is it doesn't take into account any of the extenuating circumstances or other things that are going on. Again, the other thing that we talked about there is that maybe they're dealing with something. Maybe there's something going on that they really need you for. And if you're testing them and then they fail the test and then you jump all over them, that just doesn't seem healthy. So that's the first big issue that I kind of have with the bird theory test. The second is that maybe you know them well enough, right? I've been married for a lot of years. I know what's important to my wife, right? I know the things that she finds important and the things that she doesn't. I also know the types of stories that she tells, right? I will just give you this deep insight into our relationship. My wife doesn't tell me a lot of stories about randomly seeing birds. Sometimes she does, but it's not a normal thing. And so if I saw this happening and this, say she was trying this on me, I would immediately kind of be a little taken aback. I wouldn't probably react in a way that maybe would count as passing the test or as like a high score. But I don't think in any capacity that has anything to do with the quality of our relationship, because it would be a response because I know my wife and I know what's important to her, the types of stories that she tells, how she tells stories. And then that way I can kind of gauge that. So again, I think for a lot of you, I would guess that you probably know your partner really well and they probably know you really well. And so if you tell them this off the wall story out of nowhere and they react oddly to it, that's not the way that TikTok tells you they're supposed to, that doesn't mean you have a bad relationship. It's kind of the same thing if I could say with about 100% certainty that my wife doesn't have the desire to be a professional clown, right? Just as like a random thing. But if she came to me today and she was just like, babe, I want to go be a professional clown, I'm probably not going to give that, again, what would sound like a passing score on the bird theory test, because I know that it's not necessarily legitimate or real. I would still ask questions. I'd be like, hey, where's this coming from? And so maybe that, in a sense, is a passing grade. But again, I just think the point is that the bird theory is sometimes so out of left field that a partner might react in an odd way. And TikTok might say, oh, well, they're just a terrible partner because of that. And I just don't think that that is fair. And again, that's what this test is setting them up for. The third issue that I have with the bird theory is publicly shaming your partner is dumb. I tried to look for a better, more professional word than dumb there, but I could not think of one. If you are publicly shaming your partner, throwing them onto social media, throwing them under the bus just to get likes and to get comments and to let the whole internet pile on top of them just because they failed a silly TikTok test, I think it's dumb. And I really think if those likes and that internet clout and all of that is more important to you than the quality of your relationship, I really think you've got some deeper questions to ask. And it's interesting, and I'm not going to go too far into this, but I look at a lot of this came from like influencer couples. And I think it's pretty neat that a lot of these influencer couples put themselves out there and they really let people kind of see into a real relationship. And I see a lot of them doing this bird theory test. And the problem is that they're normalizing it, and in their relationship, maybe getting that content because it's the way that they make money and put food on the table, maybe it is worth the potential risk of everything. And they have a bit of a unique relationship where they know, hey, our relationship is partly about content. And so it's something that can operate a little bit safer and a little bit more effectively in that relationship. Whereas a normal type relationship, it's just, I don't know, it just doesn't feel like the right fit. And point being, if you are doing something to publicly shame your partner on social media, please rethink that. That's my nice way of putting that. The last issue that I have with the bird theory is that testing your partner, whether you're putting it on social media afterwards or not, creates insecurity. If you have to, like, my wife has never tested me on anything. She's never done something and then later said, I was just testing you to see if you would do this or react this way. And because of that, anything that my wife does, I don't have to put it through the lens of, is this real or is she testing me? The problem is once you do it once, even if you're like, oh, it's just a joke, your person then always has to think when something's happening, is this real or is this a test? What's going on here? And it just puts this unnecessary uneasiness and ambiguity into the relationship that I personally don't think is healthy. And I think there's probably people that are going to disagree with me on this and think, it's just playful, you're overdoing it. But I think if you've spent any time in your brain, a lot of our brains have a hard time distinguishing, even if we know something was a joke or something was harmless or whatever, we don't necessarily have this ability to just shut it out right away. It's always there. It's always nagging a little bit. And then when emotions rise, things get tough and we aren't thinking straight, those thoughts will start to come out again. And I think I personally think that's not healthy. The interesting thing is I did a little reading for this story looking into the idea of testing your partner. And I read some stuff from some psychologists and psychiatrists. And a lot of what they said is that people who are, they called them testers, people who are testers who test their partner, and not just with the bird theory, but things like, oh, well, I'm going to have my attractive friend reach out to him and see if he responds, or I know he has this special event, his guy's poker night every Wednesday. I'm going to ask him to go to this other thing with me just to see if he'll say no. I don't actually want him to go, but I'm just to see. And they all said that people who are testers, generally, it's not that they're bad people. It's not that they're a bad partner, but most of them have insecurities and self-esteem issues. And I'm not going to pretend to be a therapist. I'm not going to dig into that anywhere, try and therapize anyone through a camera to the masses. But I will say that the experts say that if you are someone who tests your partner, most likely that comes from insecurity. There's a great quote that I've always liked that is, hurt people, meaning if you're someone who's hurt, you typically will do things to hurt other people. The same kind of thought, I think, goes here, that people who are insecure are going to conduct tests to test insecurity on other people. There's also a thought that people who are commit infidelity, who are cheaters, will a lot of times accuse their partner of infidelity and cheating, because that's just kind of the way that the brain operates. So point being, regardless of you're doing this for fun, just because you think it's cute, testing your partner has the potential to create insecurity now or down the road, even if it's playful. So those are the reasons, those are the issues that I kind of have with the bird theory. The biggest rebuttal that I'm sure I'm going to get from a lot of people, and I've heard, is like, well, what if it's just for fun, right? What if we're just, I think it's silly, I'm not even going to post it on social media, we're just doing it for fun. And you kind of look at that last point I made, where it basically, the way that I put it is, it's high risk, low reward, right? So if it goes over great and nothing bad happens and nobody gets insecure, the benefit to your relationship or the enjoyment that you both get out of it is probably pretty low, right? So that reward is super low. But if it does not go over well and there is a big issue and there's some insecurity and you might not even know it, right? It might be something that manifests way down the road. If that happens, that is a big risk, right? That is a huge problem in your relationship. So I always find some good advice for relationships, or literally anything in life, is try and do more things, or don't do things that are high risk, low reward. Try and find things that are low risk, potential for high reward, or at least a balance of risk versus reward. And my second thought to people that say, well, this is just fun, we're having fun, is there's probably a lot of other ways to have fun, right? If you are now like, great, Jason said I can't do the bird theory test, we can't have any more fun, there's nothing else to do. I encourage you to think through that, because there was a time when there were not TikTok challenges, there were not random TikTok theories and things like that. And I will tell you this, that couples have had a great time and found fun things to do before that. So I don't think that's really the best rebuttal to that. I think bottom line on the bird theory, it is high risk, low reward. And that's where I'm going to leave that. So what happens then if you do want to get a barometer and an idea of where your relationship is? Well, I have come up with a test theory, whatever you want to call it. It's not originating on TikTok. It's originating right here on YouTube. But this is revolutionary. It is life-changing. If you are driving, I encourage you to pull over, because your mind is about to explode. If you're not sitting down, sit down. This is called the chirp test. And it is, again, they went bird theory, so we're sticking with aviary, we're sticking with the birds, the chirp test. Chirping is when birds communicate. It's when they talk to each other. So here's what I'm challenging you to do. Talk to your partner. Ask them how things are. Ask them how they're doing. Check in with them. Communicate. Have an adult conversation. I'm totally kidding here, obviously. There's no such thing called the chirp test, but the point I'm trying to make, and maybe I'm trying to make this silly when it doesn't need to be, but the point is, have a conversation. Just talk to them, right? If you're not sure, if you are insecure about where your relationship's at, and you've shared things in the past, where you wanted them to be excited about it, you wanted them to be interested, and they weren't, bring it up. Talk to them. Say, hey, you know, the other day when I told you about how I wanted to become a professional clown, and you kind of just laughed at me and you didn't like respond. That was actually important to me, right? That was, you know, I know maybe it was a little out of left field. Maybe you didn't think it was important. Maybe you had some stuff going on, but that was important to me. And the way that you responded to that, like, it just didn't make me feel great. It didn't make me feel like I was a priority or that was important. Is it possible in the future that we can find a way to kind of better communicate in those instances? And in that scenario, if your partner, when you say that to them and then they blow you off or anything like that, that I feel like is a definite sign that there's issues. But I would venture to say that if you've got a great partner, which I'm imagining most of you do, and they come out and they go, oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't realize that. I thought you were kidding. You know, we watched that clown movie the other day, so I assumed, maybe you're just making a joke about it. You know, that's how I think they're most likely gonna react. And that allows you then to kind of bring it out there, put it out there, and then have a conversation about, hey, what's something maybe I could say in the future when I know something maybe doesn't come across as sounding serious, but it actually is? Like, how can I let you know that it is serious? And it could be as silly as saying like, hey, this is one of those clown moments, right? This is one of those I want to be a clown moments. Like, maybe that's your phrase, right? You can literally take that phrase, and if you have to share something with your partner and you feel like they're not taking you seriously, but you want them to, and it's important, just say, hey, this is one of those I want to be a clown moments. And you both can agree in that conversation that if one of you says that, it is never a joke, and it literally means, hey, this is important. I need you to snap to and be dialed in with me on this. So it doesn't have to be the clown thing. I just think that's kind of fun, and I think, you know, it could be something unique that, you know, unless you guys come from like a clown family and maybe that's something that happens normally, don't use that. Find your own example. But point being, this is the way that you set things in your relationship to set you up for future success, right? Because it might be 6 months, a year from now until something comes up that you would take seriously, but they don't. But then you can go, oh, you know what? I have that thing. And you say it. And I guarantee if you've got a great partner, which I'm just guessing and hoping a lot of you do, they're going to be okay. They're going to be on board with that. So that is my full take on the bird theory. I think it's low risk, high reward, which is how I view a lot of TikTok things. I think they come from a good place. I think people are sometimes trying to help people find ways to connect with their partner. But at the end of the day, they sometimes get blown out of proportion without looking at all the extenuating circumstances and the things that need to be there for that. So if you're planning on doing the bird theory, I'd recommend don't do it. If you've already done it, I recommend having a conversation with your partner and say, hey, look, we did this thing and it was kind of testing you. I know we did it as a joke, but I want you to know that, like, moving forward, I'm not going to be testing you. I don't think that's fair to you. I don't think it's fair to either of us. Can we agree that neither of us will do that and kind of reset that stage so you're not doomed if you've already done the bird theory, whether you got good or bad results. If you did do the bird theory test and your partner did not respond properly, I would consider having a conversation about it and just saying, hey, was it one of these other things, or are you just terrible? No, don't say the second part, but just give a chance for that to come back in. So thank you all again. If you enjoy this content and you want to hear more of it, right, we're going to be digging into a lot of really fun, cool stuff. Like, subscribe, notify, share it with everyone. Would mean a lot to us, helps us to keep putting out some great content, and also we'd love to be able to share that with you. So again, my name's Jason. Thank you all. Have a great day. Talk to you soon.